This new publication by the UK's Office for Environmental Protection has all the makings of a blockbuster, and one that will have far-reaching implications on the nature of environmental protection over the coming years. It highlights 16 ways to improve the current arrangements. Will it work? Let's take a look. Welcome to EMSmastery, where we look at the successful strategies and tactics to master environmental management and sustainability. If we're meeting for the first time, my name is Andrew Marlowe. This episode looks at the recent publication entitled Taking Stock, Protecting, Restoring and Improving the Environment in England from the Office for Environmental Protection, and whether its recommendations will shake up the current framework for environmental protection. Let's take a short look at what is the Office for Environmental Protection, or OEP as it can be shortened to. The OEP was established in the wake of Brexit by the Environment Act 2021 and is an independent public body with powers to advise ministers and government departments and, importantly, to hold them and other public authorities to account against their environmental responsibilities and the law. Its principal objective is to contribute to environmental protection and the improvement of the natural environment, with four main functions that will contribute to achieving that objective. Namely, scrutinising environmental improvement plans and targets, which is the main thrust of this publication in its monitoring, critically assessing and reporting on government's progress in improving the natural environment in line with their environmental improvement plans, or EIPs, goals and targets. Its other three functions are scrutinising environmental law, advising government on environmental law, and enforcing against failures to comply with environmental law. So now we understand what is the Office for Environmental Protection and their functions, we can look at the structure of their recently published report. The report is broken down into 6 building blocks, which are intended to support and deliver the government's vision within its 25-year environment plan, which are considered to be vital to deliver the government's vision and other legal targets and commitments. The 6 building blocks are understanding environmental drivers and pressures, creating a vision, setting targets, coherent strategy and policy, governance, and monitoring, assessing and reporting. I will cover the content of each building block in further detail later in this video, and you can jump ahead to specific building blocks using the chapters facility within YouTube. Additionally, there are 3 annexes covering an illustration of pressures in need of government prioritisation and immediate action, guiding principles of a good assessment, and target map details, as well as a summary of terms and acronyms used within the report. If you're getting value out of this episode, please click on the like button. And if you want to see more environmental and sustainability videos, please click on the subscribe button to see more videos from this YouTube channel. Now, I will examine each building block individually and in further detail. The report recognises that environmental issues are pressing and biodiversity is in a long-term decline, with many pressures limiting environmental recovery, such as air pollution, high levels of water pollution, and the unsustainable use of marine, freshwater and land resources. Within England, the report recognises that there are justified concerns about the environment. The UK is now potentially one of the most biodiverse depleted countries in the world, and the state of the UK's air, freshwater, marine and terrestrial environments are a constraint on progress to improve nature conservation. Additionally, air pollution significantly impacts on people's life and lifespan and is one of the biggest environmental threats to health in the UK, with between 28 to 36,000 deaths each year attributed to air pollution exposure. There is a need for government to provide clarity in its priorities for the environment, in these and in other areas, as well as in relation to its ambitions for a net zero economy and its climate change commitments, both nationally and internationally. Whilst the UK government's 25-year environment plan provides a framework for 6 environmental goals covering significant environmental areas, it also covers the pressures on the environment in 4 key goal areas. In the government's latest annual progress report, it shows that 9 of the indicators related to the current 25-year environment plan goals are moving in a desirable direction. 11 show a mixed picture and 7 are moving in an undesirable and unsustainable direction, which is a mixed performance at the best of times. Additionally, prioritisation is highlighted as the report recognises that whilst government will need to respond to all environmental pressures, some pressures are more urgent, more harmful and more widespread than others. Against this backdrop, the government must develop an effective and timely response to each of them. Further supporting commentary is given in Annex 1, which provides an illustration of the pressures in need of government prioritisation and immediate action. The recommendation for this building block provides 2 focus areas. A comprehensive stocktake of the condition of the environment, environmental pressures and their drivers at the time of the next environmental improvement plan to allow the identification of current and emerging issues and to more effectively manage those issues. And secondly, an immediate prioritisation. With a comprehensive understanding of the environment, government must identify and prioritise the most important environmental concerns in a transparent and timely manner. In its second building block, the report encourages that the government's vision for the environment should be bold and clear, with a description of both the desired destination and the scale of the necessary change that this represents, and that it should be supported by all government departments. Concern is voiced that terms such as vision, mission and purpose are used commonly in strategic plans, but their meanings can sometimes give rise to confusion. Further linkage is made to the government's 25-year environment plan, which both commends the government for establishing an ambitious overarching vision and recognises the challenge in developing an overarching vision for a varied and continually changing environment. However, of equal concern is the limited acknowledgement of the 25-year environment plan's vision across government. A table of the large number of supplementary strategies and individual parts of the environment elaborating on the government's vision further provides an illustration of the scale of integration, delivery and necessary cross-government and cross-departmental support. The recommendation provides two further focus areas. Clarity, to ensure that the overarching vision of the 25-year Environment Plan and for key areas of the environment can be clear, coherent and evidence-based and can manage competing priorities to put the environment first. Commitment. The environment and environmental strategy should be the responsibility of all government departments, with active support from the government for its vision across all departments at the same level and extent as its net zero strategy. Building block 3 deals with setting targets. Here you would think that the Office for Environmental Protection would find good evidence of governmental targets for environmental protection, as it always appears that governments of all persuasions like setting targets. Indeed, it is telling that the OEP had to make reference to an Australian Transport Assessment Planning document to understand the definition of goals, objectives and targets. Indeed, the report spends much of its coverage in this section to explain the hierarchy of goals and objectives and targets and the setting of SMART targets. The most telling is a schematic map which shows the relationship between 28 separate targets and commitments in a single policy area, with transposition of EU targets found to be inconsistent across different pieces of legislation. Only around half of the commitments in the 25-year Environment Plan reflected in domestic strategies, and just 2 legally binding targets, with a potential further 2 statutory targets as part of the Environment Act 2021. Actual achievement of targets is illustrated with failed targets, where, for example, the Biodiversity 2020 strategy targeted 50% of sites of special scientific interest in England to be in favourable condition, with only 38.2% at that status as of 2022, amid a largely static situation for the previous 5 years. Similarly, under air quality, it observes that the government has been in breach of EU standards on nitrogen dioxide concentrations since 2010. More recently, in 2019, 33 of the UK's 43 air quality zones did not comply with annual limits for nitrogen dioxide concentrations. The report makes an overall comment that current environmental targets are not driving the scale or urgency of response required, and the effect that this will have where this frequent failure to meet targets erodes public confidence in the government's commitment or capacity to deliver against new targets, which are often more challenging than the targets that have just been missed. Additionally, Annex 3 provides a target map and details linking the policy area with the target or commitment and its drivers, as well as the deadlines, as an initial opportunity to help in the setting of meaningful targets. Within this building block, the recommendation provides 4 key focus areas covering coherence for the interrelationships of targets and opportunities of them to be more mutually supportive and to have synergistic effects and impacts. Hierarchy, to ensure that government must demonstrate how targets are intended to work together in an ordered hierarchy towards the achievement of overarching goals and objectives. Ambition, to set ambitious long-term statutory targets against the backdrop of the scale of necessary change, with use of interim targets to provide short-term direction and stimulus. And finally, legal underpinning. Government should give a legal underpinning to its targets under the Environment Act 2021 to provide the necessary priority within and outside government. Within Building Block 4, recognition is given to the increase in DEFRA's workload due to the repatriation of policy responsibilities following Brexit, and in response to increasing public concern about the poor state of the environment. However, with this situation comes the risk of a lack of coherence, which can hold back the opportunity for success. This is clearly highlighted in a schematic on the strategies, policies and delivery for addressing biodiversity, which serves to illustrate the complexity of just a single policy area against the backdrop of a multiplicity of policies in other competing areas, changing frequently with no definitive list of policies and associated expenditure. Clear encouragement for greater strategy and policy integration within DEFRA and across government, and for clear delivery and reflective evaluation is offered as a way forward. Within this building block, the recommendation provides 3 key focus areas: coherence with all key government strategies and policies that affect the environment. They should be aligned with the ambitious 25-year Environment Plan and future EIPs. Integration with an integrated and effective delivery of all environmental strategies and policies, taking a cross-functional approach and embracing opportunities for transformational change. Evaluation. The marriage of ambition with timely evaluation of implementation and evidence-based reviews to seek solutions to the delivery problems. The governance building block gives recognition to the ambition, vision and targets that will not lead to environmental change on their own, but must be accompanied with a strong governance framework to provide for the necessary oversight and accountability for their delivery. The role of central government, leadership and cross-departmental collaboration is emphasised, as well as an additional review of DEFRA and its delivery partners. Here, evidence from the National Audit Office highlighted that dedicated accountability within the department for the 10 goals within the 25-year Environment Plan were not on track, and that funding allocations and monitoring were piecemeal rather than strategically coordinated around the government's 25-year Environment Plan. Within this building block, the recommendation provides 3 key focus areas, covering accountability and responsibility for government to establish strong environmental improvement plans, governance arrangements including the involvement of other governmental departments as well as within DEFRA and among its delivery partners and local authorities to ensure greater integration and clearer responsibilities for the delivery of the environmental improvement plans. And finally, to apply the environmental principles, where government should publish the final policy statement on environmental principles as soon as possible and set out how they will support and monitor the principles. Finally, in the 6th building block, the report outlines the importance of a comprehensive baseline designed to show the condition of the environment at a point in time and acting as a reference point, together with timely reliable and comprehensive monitoring. The identification of changes over time is stating the obvious, but nonetheless is key to the structure that is required. Gaps in monitoring with reference to the Outcome Indicator Framework, or OIF, which is the platform for bringing together a range of current and developing monitoring programs in England, lacks precision, with many of its 66 indicators still under development, leading to a number of well-recognised gaps. Indeed, the report voices concern over the reduction in environmental monitoring across many parts of the environment, especially in biodiversity and in water quality monitoring. The principles for good assessment are outlined with reference to 4 guiding principles, namely to be evidence-based, accessible, consistent and transparent. Further supporting guidance on these 4 guiding principles are covered in Annex 2 of the report. The 6th building block recommendation provides the final 3 focus areas. Purpose-driven, to allow government to identify and fill critical data gaps with a primary focus on the issues of greatest environmental concern and the monitoring, assessment and reporting framework to provide insight needed to understand the attainment of environmental goals and targets and capture the influence of pressures and their drivers. Authoritative, with a greater role for the Office of National Statistics, or ONS, to oversee environmental statistics within the context of relevant socio-economic information to allow for informed environmental improvements to truly become a cross-departmental responsibility. And finally, to be credible, the assessment methodology to measure and report progress in achieving the objectives of the environmental improvement plans should be evidence-based, accessible, consistent and transparent. Further information on the OEP's report is given in the description box below, including a link to the resources on the EMSmastery.com website. So, to summarise, early on in the report, the Office for Environmental Protection acknowledges that this report will set the scene for the commencement of formal OEP scrutiny by examining the overall effectiveness of government's national system for environmental stewardship. There is a concern that the OEP may be pulling its punches by being cautious, but also we should recognise that this first report acts as a baseline for the future reviews of the government's environmental protection performance. We and many others will be looking with interest for the second report to see that the OEP has the confidence to deliver on its objective to hold ministers and government departments to account against their environmental responsibilities and the law. Much in the report is linked to the government's 25-year environment plan, which is its flagship strategy published in January 2018, and other targets described in regulations. These and many areas where the 25-year environmental plan itself needs attention to make it a fully functioning strategy, not least for the legally binding targets that will hopefully be enshrined in the Environmental Act 2021. Overall, I would give the Office for Environmental Protection's report a B+ for setting the standard that it is to be expected from the government in its delivery of environmental protection, and a C- for the current government delivery of environmental protection. With room for improvement, there is plenty to look forward to over the next 12 months ahead of the next OEP report. If this report has helped to advance your understanding of the Office for Environmental Protection's first report in taking stock, protecting, restoring and improving the environment in England, please leave a comment in the box below if this video has helped you. Finally, please subscribe to this YouTube channel to ensure that you don't miss out on other episodes on environmental management and sustainability. Until then, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, you can watch other episodes by clicking on the boxes in the top and bottom right, and to subscribe to this channel, click on the link to the left. Thank you.